I'm Sara Azari, criminal trial attorney, NewsNation legal analyst, and the host of Serving Justice. Today we were back in the trial of United States versus Sean Combs, and we heard a full day of testimony from his former assistant, a third former assistant now, Capricorn Clark. And boy, I mean, she testified to a lot of predicate acts that go to the racketeering charge, the most serious charge that Combs is facing. She testified to kidnapping. She testified that Sean Combs showed up at her door with a gun and essentially forced her to go over to Cuddy's house. That's something that we also heard from Cuddy, which is kidnapping, a textbook predicate act for racketeering. We also heard about forced labor, that she was getting paid something like $65,000 a year, working 9 to 4 with no breaks, that the environment was very hostile, that she was threatened, that at one point Sean Combs suspected that she or others had stolen jewelry, and she had to take a polygraph day after day after day. At some point, the results of this polygraph were inconclusive, to which the polygraph examiner said, if I don't get some conclusive results here, you're going to be thrown in the East River. So she testified to a lot of threats. She also testified to obstruction of justice, essentially saying that Combs had approached her and Cassie and said they need to convince Cuddy not to go to the police about his the break-in of his home. So we had obstruction of justice, we had kidnapping, we had threats with a gun, we had intimidation, we had forced labor. These are all events that support racketeering. But you know what we still don't have? We really don't have proof beyond a reasonable doubt of a criminal enterprise, and we certainly don't have a conspiracy to racketeer. This idea that Sean Combs was the mob boss, okay, because RICO is a statute that came about to enforce mob activity, and that he had a meeting of the minds between two or more of his sub-bosses to further the purpose of the enterprise. So we have a lot of methods and means of the enterprise, the intimidation, the threats, the obstruction. We don't have the conspiracy yet, right? So I'm curious to see what more the prosecution is going to bring in the next couple of weeks that they're putting on their case. So on cross-examination, she testified to a lot of facts that are good for the defense. She confirmed that Cassie was not forced to dye her hair, that even though Diddy had the ultimate say in her appearance, that was to the extent that she was a talent for Bad Boy. She testified that her talent was mush. She wasn't really great doing live performances. She also testified that essentially that Cassie Ventura was given a lot of resources by Diddy. She was introduced to a lot of people in the business so that she could work. And even after the focus seemed to shift away from Cassie to other talent, she was still being supported and given resources by Sean Combs. So this is all really good stuff for the defense, because it shows agency and autonomy. It's the antithesis of someone who's being controlled and coerced. And clearly, the fact that her career didn't take off does not mean that Combs was the cause of that, or that Combs essentially enslaved her and prevented her from progressing in her career. So I thought that was good for the defense. The fact that she was blacklisted is completely speculative. We don't know why she couldn't get a job after she was fired in 2012 by Combs, right? And she came right back and got a job in 2016, even though she testified that was at Cassie's request. What we have here is somebody who still had a job waiting for her, who ultimately was working for Combs, even if she was working for Combs indirectly. But I think what's really important is that we are missing a conspiracy here, and we're still missing an enterprise. The prosecution has not met its burden beyond a reasonable doubt as to an enterprise for racketeering and as to a conspiracy to racketeer between Combs and some of these sub-bosses under him. I think what was most shocking about Capricorn Clark's testimony today was that she testified to a lot of details around the break-in of Cuddy's home, and even testified to a chase that ensued that Kid Cudi never talked about. Okay, you can't say that Kid Cudi, who was the target of essentially Combs's attacks and showing up with a gun, just forgot about that massive portion of the event. that there was a chase and he just didn't testify to it. I think the prosecution made a mistake. I think the prosecution should have had Capricorn Clark testify first and then come back with Cuddy and maybe try to fill in the blanks there. But having Cuddy on and then Capricorn Clark, I think, was a big mistake by the prosecution. I'll be back here tomorrow at the end of the day to recap a full day of testimony with legal analysis. Please stay with NewsNation and follow along in the trial of Sean Combs.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.